All right, welcome to this Cwic Media production of The City and the Soul, presented by host and friend Dr. Ralph Hancock. He will be putting out several of these episodes that really focus on his life's work, on the real fundamental basics of what is love, what is the good, and talking about several other things. This episode is about BYU reforms and what many of you may not know and what is going on there at this time. He's got an inside look on this and presents this to us. And I think you're really going to enjoy this type of a series. Now, Ralph is one of the smartest men that I know. So if you really want to dig into these fundamental basics of life and society, political philosophy, etc., you're really going to like this. So look for these episodes, maybe a couple times a week. This episode is brought to you by Fathom the Good, which is a high school curriculum, also adult curriculum for homeschooling and personal use. It's built on the principles of the founding of America, on focusing on the good, and something that doesn't really happen anymore in public education, critical thinking. If you want your teenagers or you yourself want to learn how to think critically and really find the good and help in your decision making, and learn an awful lot, then check out Fathom the Good at fathomthegood.com. Here we go with The City and the Soul with Dr. Ralph Hancock.
The City and the Soul.
Hello, I'm Ralph Hancock, and this is The City and the Soul. As you know, here on The City and the Soul, we try to connect questions about our personal lives, moral and spiritual, religious and ethical questions, with the most timely political and social questions, ideological questions. We want to explore this interface between our own quest to live a good life and the norms that obtain in our political society. And today we want to take a look at a quite interesting article recently appearing in the Salt Lake Tribune. I've been wondering when the press would take an interest in quite a momentous development at Brigham Young University in Provo, and that is the proposition of a rather complete overhaul of the general education system. And we see that on March 23rd, the Tribune did indeed publish an article, BYU pumps the brakes on sweeping curriculum overhaul after faculty feedback. Well, naturally, the Tribune has a point of view, a rather predictable point of view, and their point of view is essentially taking the side of those who are resisting Vice President Justin Collins' attempts to overhaul, or propositions to overhaul the general education curriculum in the name of, well, we're going to see what the substance of their objections is. But in any case, the Salt Lake Tribune is more than attentive to any faculty who would object and resist. And they report interviews with 12 faculty members, they say, from the hard sciences to the humanities, all of whom have asked that their names be withheld for fear of retribution. That sounds rather daunting, doesn't it? But these interviews uncovered widespread wariness over the proposal. Well, that seems altogether plausible and not too surprising, but let's examine the cause of this wariness and the reasons that the Salt Lake Tribune and its friends among BYU faculty have to resist the proposals of Justin Collins for GE reform at BYU. Let's first look at the basic point of these reforms. There are two main elements, and these come out in the article. One is, you might say, purely formal and a matter of, let's say, curricular efficiency. The objective would be to streamline general education, to simplify it, and to reduce a complicated web of options to 8 main required courses that would be required of all students. So that's the let's say the imperative of a kind of formal efficiency. But in terms of content or substance, the Collins reforms aim at, and this has been a focus at BYU in recent years, as many of you know. In terms of content, the aim is to align BYU's general education more specifically with BYU's mission. And therefore, the aim is precisely to have a shared curriculum that is distinctive of BYU's mission, which mission, of course, is supposed to be grounded in the gospel of Jesus Christ and the mission of the restored church. Well, let's come to some of the objections that were gathered by the Salt Lake Tribune. The first objection is very predictable and by no means illegitimate. And that is simply that many faculty are objecting that they wish to teach in their expertise, and the courses proposed were not designed and proposed by them, and seem not to conform to what they call their expertise, to their disciplinary training. So none of this can be surprising. One could dismiss this objection as just a matter of vested interests. Here are faculty who are used to doing things a certain way, who have been, hired and paid and promoted to do things a certain way, who have a vested interest in the way that things have been done before. And naturally, it is costly in many ways for them to be expected to do things differently. So there is an understandable, and even I would say to a point legitimate, concern that they're being asked to do something that they have not been trained to do, that is not in their expertise, that does not suit their understanding of their role as professors. The second and related objection is that the new curriculum might be considered idiosyncratic, is the term that is used. Here's a nice quotation from the Tribune. The concern is that the proposal's potential would be to devalue diplomas and hurt would-be transfer students by saddling transcripts with idiosyncratic classes likely to raise the eyebrows of human resource and admissions officers. Well, idiosyncratic, and that's really the nub of the problem, isn't it? That any attempt to align BYU's curriculum more fully with the gospel mission is likely to be considered idiosyncratic by some. One might respond that the whole point is in a way to be distinctive or idiosyncratic. You can use the positive term distinctive or the more negative term idiosyncratic, but the tension is predictable and really structural between a faculty whose main regard is to peers in the general academic world and institutions that have their own idea of the meaning of education on the one hand, and BYU's commitment to its distinctive mission on the other hand. Justin Collins' justification of what the Salt Lake Tribune calls idiosyncratic features is as follows, citing again from the Tribune article: too many general education courses, he lamented, over-index on disciplinary content and under-index on the virtues and dispositions of disciple scholars, thus obscuring our uniqueness and making our general education difficult to distinguish from programs at other institutions. So there you see the nub of the problem. Many faculty and the Salt Lake Tribune want BYU's curriculum and its overall orientation to fit very comfortably with the mainstream of academia. And Vice President Collins has been so bold as to undertake a reform of general education which would emphasize our uniqueness and would welcome distinguishing our program from other institutions. Well, once you frame the question in this way, we can see the legitimate concerns on both sides of this argument. The underlying structural problem, and one can have great sympathy for the faculty who are concerned with this rather idiosyncratic or distinctive proposal, this major change being proposed. One can understand the faculty's attachment to the ways they've been doing things and their own ideas of the discipline. At the same time, one can understand Justin Collins' determination to align the core education at BYU more fully with the gospel. The structural problem that comes to light here is that the faculty who have been hired at BYU have been hired largely under broadly generic academic terms. They've been hired as temple recommend bearing Latter-day Saints at the same time, but in terms of their professional formation and their educational background, they've been hired mainly according to mainstream understandings of the disciplines, and that includes the worldviews that tend to infuse, mostly implicitly, the standard disciplines, the conventional disciplines in which our faculty are educated. Let's take a look at one class in particular that I think, if I can find the right description here, one class in particular in which the stakes of the argument become especially clear, and that is a class entitled Out of the Best Books. Here's the description. Out of the Best Books, Preludes to the Restoration. This class explores how women and men across time and space have wrestled with the great questions of the soul through art, music, literature, and philosophy. It also provides how the longings, I suppose, a view of how the longings of the millennia have found luminous answers to the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, or it seems to be a misprint there, in the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. Well, in other words, the idea of this, one of the building blocks of the new general education proposal is essentially a liberal arts class that includes music, literature, and philosophy, the great questions of the soul, as a prelude to the restoration. This class would be essentially a class that would seek to recover an old-fashioned liberal arts or great books understanding of higher education in connection with an openness to the truths of Revelation. So such a class would, in a way, bring together the greatest reflections on the soul and on the human community over centuries of civilization. The questions, it would bring together the questions from that, from the great conversation of the great books, with the let us say the answers proposed in the scriptures by the prophets, by Revelation. Well, that to me is a very ambitious and attractive proposal. But again, the question would be, how many faculty have been trained in the liberal arts, have been trained in the great conversation of art, literature, music, and philosophy, let us say, in such a way as to be able to connect these with the central insights of the restored gospel. Alas, I think one must say that it would be rare to find faculty whose academic preparation in the conventional disciplines would prepare them to do that. So this is the nub of the structural problem at BYU, and one can have sympathy with both sides. There are complaints of distrust on the part of the faculty. They feel that the recent Commissioner of Church Education, Clark Gilbert, and the BYU administration have not shown sufficient trust in the existing faculty. And I think that points to the fact that there is this structural mismatch between what the faculty have prepared to do, what they've been trained to do, and what they might be asked to do under a new regime of general education. Faculty complain of a sense of being distrusted by the administration and by church authorities, perhaps, but the administration, Justin Collins, could express the same concern that his initiatives do not receive sufficient trust and are do not meet the goodwill and willingness to accommodate of the faculty that they might. Well, my point is to say that one can understand the mutual distrust, really, because there is a structural problem here. And as Justin Collins takes his proposal back to the drawing board, so to speak, or as he considers revisions to try to accommodate some of these concerns and objections, it seems to me that what has to be faced is this basic structural problem, the problem of somehow acquiring the faculty that is needed to teach a kind of education for whom the present faculty was not hired. Of course, there are exceptions, and I'm painting with rather broad brushstrokes, but that's really the heart of the problem. We want let's say, a transdisciplinary general education that is grounded in the best books, the great books on the one hand, the liberal arts tradition on the one hand, and the truths of the restored gospel on the other. But that is not the kind of education that our faculty have been prepared to offer. So there's going to be no overnight solution to this kind of problem. And I'm glad it's not my problem. I wouldn't be sure exactly what to recommend, but I think the beginning of wisdom is to be attentive to properly weigh the challenge of this mismatch between the conventional disciplinary background of the faculty, which is not without its worldview baggage, not to say its ideological baggage on the one hand, and the distinctive mission of BYU and the other. So that's my perspective today. I'm Ralph Hancock. This is The City and the Soul.
The City and the Soul.